Hey everybody, we have been going over the Atomic Habits book by James Clear, and we're going to go over chapter 3 today. This is how to build better habits. But before we go any further, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and if you enjoy these videos, share them with others. The whole point of this channel is to share my journey, but also encourage others that they can do this and improve their life too. Let's talk about why we build habits, and then we'll talk about how. An event happens, whatever that is, we assess the situation to get to the reward. An example the book uses is there was a scientist that took cats, put them in a puzzle box, and if they got out of the puzzle box, they got food. Initially, when they put them in the puzzle box, the cat would go to the corner, stick its nose in, try to paw to get out, but after a few minutes, it would start to wander around the puzzle box. The idea was they would have to push a lever, pull a loop, various different things to open the door. Once they opened the door, they got the food. Initially, it took the cat minutes to get out. By the end of it, they had repeated this so many times that it only took a few seconds for them to achieve this goal. Now, that doesn't necessarily answer why we build habits, partially. The reason is the brain can only function consciously on one thing at a time. We have our subconscious mind, which is our automated mind. Things like breathing, those sorts of things, swallowing, all of this stuff happens automatically in our body. Because we can only focus on one thing at a time, we need to automate other functions, or we're going to get stuck doing these menial tasks with our focus and never get anything done. By automating tasks, it opens up space in our mind to work on more complicated or new things that happen that we have to assess. When new events happen, whatever that is, our brain has to look at it from all different angles and assess possible outcomes. This takes a lot of brain power, even if we're not realizing this is what's happening. Think about a problem that comes up, especially being overweight. I know that I did this like bazillions of times. I have to go somewhere and do something. My mind is racing, thinking about all the possible outcomes that could happen, or the bad things, breaking the chair, different things like that. You assess it. Automatic functions remove that because you've repeated it so many times. Your mind has wrapped its way around all of the possibilities, for the most part, of the automation. Something in anatomy the book doesn't mention, but I find very fascinating, is the reticular formation in our brain. It is the part of the mind that when we go to sleep, it silences out the signals. Things like our clothes touching us, the sheets. It does something all day long, but at nighttime it does most of its job of how can you sleep if you're constantly told sheets are touching you or your hair is touching your face, this kinds of things. It drowns out those signals so they don't actually make it to the cognitive part of our brain. It decreases the cognitive load. I just think that's kind of interesting part of the human body of how much sensory overload that can happen. And people who've had brain injuries and various different things, they can actually have damage to these areas and they get literal sensory overload. Too much input is coming into the mind and it just, boom, nothing happens. They shut down because they can't deal with so much information. I used to think that having a routine, which is just a big old habit, right, was a terrible thing because I don't want to do the same monotonous thing day in and day out. But the more I've honed in on my habits, I realize it's a comfort. Why? Because I literally have to think less about these things and can think about the things I want to. Habits do not restrict freedom. They create it. In fact, the people who don't have their habits handled are often the ones with the least amount of freedom. Without good financial habits, you will always be struggling for the next dollar. Without good health habits, you will always be seemingly short on energy. Without good learning habits, you will always feel like you're behind the curve. If you're always being forced to make decisions about simple tasks, when should I work out, where do I go right, when do I pay my bills, then you will have less time for freedom. It's only by making the fundamentals of life easier that you can create the mental space needed for free thinking and creativity. Conversely, when you have your habits dialed in and the basics of life are handled, your mind is free to focus on new challenges and master the next set of problems. Building habits in the present allows you to do more of what you want to in the future. So let's cover the basics of why we create habits. It is human nature to do this. Actually, it's animal nature to do this. Automate the simple things. Animals, all of them, they create habits. The science of how habits work. There are 4 steps of creating a habit. Cue, Craving, response, and reward. It always goes in that order. This can happen many times. It's a repeatable action that we don't even realize we're doing. Cue is the first step. It is what initiates the behavior. This is followed up by craving. This is the motivation to complete the behavior. The response would be doing the actual behavior itself, and then the reward is the whole point of the entire cycle. The first purpose of the reward is to satisfy your craving. Yes, rewards provide benefit on their own. Food and water deliver energy to you to survive. Getting a promotion brings more money and respect. Getting in shape improves your health and your dating prospects. But the more immediate benefit is a reward that satisfies your craving to eat or to gain status or to win approval. At least for the most, rewards deliver contentment and relief from craving. I want to stop and talk about this. This is the second time that I've actually read this, and this paragraph itself was really, really important for me to realize. There are times that I have binged, and this is before carnivore. I would beg Scott to go get something, let's say donuts, and he'd say no, 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 and we get this terrible fight, and eventually I would just absolutely wear him down. And the minute he said yes and got into the car to go get it, I felt instant relief. He honestly could have turned around and not brought any donuts back, and I would have been fine. I started thinking about that last night, and I realized it wasn't the actual donut per se I was craving. It was what the donut represented to me in the form of relief. Relief from the craving. If you have something, an idea just chomping on your head, whatever it is, donut, 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 all you want to do is stop. And for me, it wasn't necessarily donuts, it was stress, 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 stress. And my body learned through repeated habits, eat a donut, get a bit of relief from the stress. And I thought that was a big thing, is fundamentally, it's not that I ever really wanted the cake or the donuts. It was, I wanted what they gave me right when I ate them right after, which I find very interesting. I'm not sure if anybody else has experienced that. If you have, I would love for you to share your experience, because that was a big thing for me. All right. Second, rewards teach us which actions are worth remembering in the future. Your brain is a reward detector. As you go about life, your sensory nervous system is continuously monitoring which actions satisfy your desire and deliver pleasure. Feelings of pleasure and disappointment are part of the feedback mechanism that helps your brain distinguish useful actions from useless ones. Rewards close the feedback loop and complete the habit cycle. If a behavior is insufficient in any of the 4 stages, it will not become a habit. Eliminate the cue, and your habit will never start. Reduce the craving, and you won't experience enough motivation to act. Make the behavior difficult, and you won't be able to do it. Make the behavior difficult, and you won't be able to do this. This is why I say the only way I can have dark chocolate is if I bicycle there. It's not enough motivation. Like, the idea of having to bicycle to go get chocolate that will give me 2 seconds of pleasure, it makes the behavior more difficult because I put a barrier into place. And this is why I constantly say, if you have these things like, okay, I started carnivore and I was using the dark chocolate as when my cycle came around, but then I started having it like 2 or 3 times a week. Put a barrier in there. Make the action harder, which breaks the habit. I haven't had dark chocolate in a few months, right?
Been a while.
Yeah. Ever since I put that one little barrier into place. In summary, the cue triggers the craving, which motivates the response, provides a reward, which satisfies the craving, and ultimately becomes associated with the cue. Stress, eat donuts, no longer stress. If I don't want to be stressed, I eat donuts. The cycle continues. And the more I do that, the more deeply ingrained that habit became in me. So the second I experienced stress, I didn't even have to think about donuts. The second I experienced stress, it's like, go get a donut. And this could be any food. It could be cigarettes, drugs, whatever it is. It's just that repeated cycle happening over and over. And here's the other thing, is you can kind of skip the cue and jump right to the motivation, in the sense of, I saw a donut, I'm instantly like, oh, I noticed I'm stressed because I saw the donut. Boom, I want to go eat the donut. And this is why I strongly suggest out of sight, out of mind. If you can, in your home, control and get rid of the stuff out of your face, you are removing that cue of donut, stress, need to feel better, eat the donut. So I say this a lot. If you can, and if you are struggling with this, put it in the refrigerator, cover it up with a towel, put it in a cabinet that you don't have to go into. Get the stuff out of your face. This will help immensely breaking habits of eating bad food. The 4 steps can be cut into 2 phases: problem phase, solution phase. The problem phase includes the cue and the craving. It's when you realize something is needing to change. The solution phase includes the response and the reward. It's when you take action and achieve the change you desire. All behavior is driven by the desire to solve a problem. Sometimes the problem is that you notice something good and you want to obtain it. Sometimes the problem is you're experiencing pain and you want to relieve it. Either way, the purpose of every habit is to solve the problems we face. There is a table in the book that goes over some samples, and I'll just read a few too. Problem phase. The cue. Your phone buzzes with a new text message. The craving. You want to learn the content of the message. The response. You grab your phone and read the text. The reward. You satisfy your craving to read the message. Grabbing your phone becomes associated with your phone buzzing. Cue. You smell a donut shop as you walk down the street near your office. Craving. You begin to crave a donut. Response. You buy a donut and eat it. Reward. You satisfy your craving to eat a donut. Buying a donut becomes associated with walking down the street near your office. Mine happened to be stress, not walking near the office. But if you've ever noticed, you go to work and you have to have a coffee. That's exactly where it starts. You start by having it. Your brain associates it with where you're at. You repeat the cycle. Boom. Now, being near a coffee shop at work triggers a craving for coffee, and then you get it. And the cycle continues. It doesn't always have to be a negative one per se, but these are how our habits are formed. We now understand the fundamentals of how and why we create habits. But what can we do with this information? The book changes the cue, craving, response, and reward into 4 different behavioral laws. The first one is how to create a good habit. The first law, which is a cue, make it obvious. The second law, craving, make it attractive. Third law, response, make it easy. Fourth law, reward, make it satisfying. Now that's how we create good habits, but most of us have pretty bad habits, including me. So how do we do that? We do the inverse. Law 1, cue, make it invisible. Law 2, craving, make it unattractive. Law 3, response, make it difficult. Law 4, reward, make it unsatisfying. These are the fundamentals of how we create good and get rid of bad habits. These are what I use day to day. This is how I went from eating chocolate, dark chocolate, as a semi-crutch to now not doing it at all. It's also how I've created the good habits, like doing my morning mile, being on top of things that I need to be on top of, my schedule book, using my non-scale victory journal, the goals and habits that I want to achieve. These are the fundamentals for it. To close us out, whenever you want to change your behavior, you can simply ask yourself, 1, can I make it obvious? 2, can I make it attractive? 3, how can I make it easy? 4, how can I make it satisfying? If you've ever wondered, why didn't I do what I say I was going to do? Why didn't I lose a weight or stop smoking or save for retirement or start that side business? Why do I say something is important but never seem to make time for it? The answer to those questions can be found somewhere in those 4 laws. The key to creating good habits and breaking bad ones is to understand these fundamental laws and how to alter them to your specifications. Every goal is doomed to fail if it goes against the grain of human nature. Thank you so much for listening this long. If you made it this far, kudos to you. Just a quick update, our July meetup, we had to adjust because of some unforeseen things. We will now be doing July 29th, meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning at Marymoore Park in Redmond, Washington, followed by lunch at 12:30. Please consider coming if you're in the area. It is great support and fun, and I know it can be really hard to meet new people. I will be there, Scott will be there, and it is really a lot of fun with a lot of supportive people. I appreciate every one of you, and I hope to talk to you soon. Bye. The cue triggers our brain to initiate the craving. The cue pause it. The 4 steps can be cut into 2 phases. Last thing, we have I'm doing terrible today.